To kick things off, I would like to invite GSMA's Head of Climate Action, Stephen Moore, who's going to start the session. Stephen, welcome to the stage.
Thanks very much. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate we're right at the end of the day, so it's great to see actually a really packed room for this discussion. Maybe just by way of introduction, I'm going to talk through just a couple of slides just opening this topic. The first one is on what we mean by a circular economy. So just in terms of context, what we're talking about for this session, and it's moving away from a system, a linear system, where we take materials out of the ground, we manufacture something with them, we use that product, and then effectively we throw those products back into the ground. So at the moment, as you can see from one of the stats on the slide, more than 90% of the materials and products that we use globally is in this linear system. So we're effectively only 8.6 circular, the whole global economy. So I think it's quite useful as context for this discussion. The GSMA, we looked at this issue, or started to look at it about 18 months ago, and we produced a strategy paper after doing a lot of research and looking to understand what was happening across the industry at the moment. What we found was that there is a quite big and growing refurbishment market, and actually the predictions are that the phone refurbishment market could reach $140 billion by 2030, so really sizable. We also found that increasing the lifetime of a phone by just 1 year would be the equivalent of taking almost 5 million cars off the road. So again, a really good potential environmental benefit of extending the lifetime of phones. The other thing that we found through research was that there are actually around 30 million people at the moment that are affected by e-waste, and particularly things like open waste burning of e-waste. There's a lot of negative social impacts of some of the current system that we have at the moment. So I thought that was useful to have as a bit of context for the discussion. And then the other thing that we included in the strategy paper that we published was a vision for how we think mobile phones could be different in the future. So the vision for 2050 that we detailed in the paper is phones with as long a lifetime as possible. They are 100% recyclable. They have 100% recycled content. They're made using 100% renewable energy, and no device goes down the linear economy route and ends up as waste. So every single device is recycled, refurbished, reused. And you can see there's some of the two key tenets of this. One is around increasing the longevity of devices, so having them to be used for as long as possible, and the other one is zero waste, so making sure, as I say, that no device actually ends up going into the ground. And I guess you could look at this and say, well, there's no phone at the moment that conforms to this. There is no phone that meets all of this criteria, which is very true, and I think we're going to discuss actually perhaps why that is and some of the challenges to that at the moment. But what I'd also like to flag is that we are seeing things go in this direction. So we had Samsung make quite a big environmental announcement back in September, committing to using 100% renewable electricity. We've seen Apple already do this and effectively say they will produce a zero carbon phone by 2030. Across Apple's entire product range they've calculated they're using about 20% renewable content, recycled content. So I think we're starting to see that being as something that manufacturers will look to measure. And then Fairphone obviously has made a focus of its whole business model looking at a phone that's entirely upgradable as well, so much more aligned to principles of the circular economy. So I thought that was useful just as context, but we want to hear from the experts. So Hastings, Maya, if you'd like to come up on stage. So I'd like to first introduce Hastings Singh, who's the Chief Customer Officer at Kingfisher, and also Maya, who's the Head of Environment and Climate at Telefónica. Hastings, would you like to say a couple of words just introducing yourself and what Kingfisher does?
Sure, thanks, Stephen. Really good to be here, and I love the provocative question as well. So that's great. So I'm Hastings. I work at Kingfisher. I'm the Chief Customer Officer. Kingfisher has been built to be a mobile experience company, helping carriers and customers upgrade devices more frequently, and then using those devices for second and third lives. So through certified pre-owned types of programs. So that's what we do. And young company, about 6 years old, but yeah, working hard to try and solve some of the questions that we're going to answer today.
Thanks very much, Hastings. And Maya, obviously I think everyone in the room knows Telefónica, but perhaps you can explain a little bit more about your focus.
Well, thank you for inviting us, and congratulations for this provocative question and topic, and thank you all for being here. So, my name is Maya Almazabal. I'm Director of Environment and other sustainability topics at Telefónica. I'm in charge of things like circular economy in the company, so I'm working very much with what the topic that is going to be the conversation for today. I think what we are seeing from the network operator's perspective is that this is a key topic for our clients, for the regulator, and that we have to be at the forefront of the innovation that we need to do as a sector. So very happy to really be here.
Thanks very much, Maya. Maybe let's think about then, because I touched upon it in the opening, the current problems with the system that we have at the moment. And Hastings, maybe if I come to you, because I understand Kingfisher, you've produced your own thought leadership paper recently, kind of touching on this issue. Could you tell us what you see as being some of the big issues of the environmental impact of mobile phones at the moment?
Sure. I mean, there's about 5.5 billion smartphones out in the world, so most people who are adults have one. The challenge that we see is not enough of these devices are actually being used and reused, which means a lot of them are ending up either in landfill or drawers, and we think that's a challenge. These things, when produced, consume about 80 kilos of CO2 equivalent, so they're quite carbon intensive or carbon equivalent intensive. And the entire industry has really been driven by a model of forward logistics. It's for 15 years smartphones have been around. The industry is very good at selling them, but as more and more focus is on the environmental cost, how do we actually change things with carriers especially, and help carriers drive better outcomes, get those phones reused, which would mean a reduction in sales in some respects, probably in the mid-range. So a whole bunch of things need to happen, and we can talk about that in a bit more detail.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maya, from your point of view and Telefónica's point of view, obviously you do a huge amount of reporting on sustainability impacts, and specifically the environmental impacts of Telefónica. Have you looked at how phones are part of that? Is that something that Telefónica's looked at to measure?
Yes, so far, yes. I mean, what we are reporting on our carbon footprint, so Scope 1, Scope 2, and also Scope 3, and here is where the mobile phones come into place in a telecom operator, So it's part of what we sell to our clients, and it's also part of what we buy from our procurements, from our vendors. So we know that we are, I mean, not just Telefónica, but as a sector, we are selling 2 billion phones every year, and we know that the carbon footprint comes not only from the energy sector, but also from the manufacturing, and 45% of the total carbon footprint comes from manufacturing. So we know that part of it's also coming from our Scope 3 emissions as a company. So we are really measuring this, and also there's some problems coming from all the environmental side, but also from the social side. We know that part of the materials that are inside a telephone are coming from conflict areas and so on. So we know that there's also social responsibility here, and so we need to cover this, and we are trying to manage and to disclose all this information that comes from the environmental impact and also from the social impact, and really trying to really show how we are managing this internally and with our stakeholders.
Great. So I mean, maybe cutting to the question that we did pose for this particular session, do you think that the problem is that we're selling too many phones? Do you think the problem is that we're selling too many new phones? Do you think the problem is that we perhaps can sell just as many new phones, but we need to perhaps manufacture them in a different way. I mean, how do you sort of look at this challenge and look at the potential solution to it? Maybe Hastings, you want to go in first?
Yeah.
I think we are selling too many phones, but specifically new phones. These smartphones are the world's most successful consumer category. I think it's the first $1 trillion category in history, in anything. And how is it that these devices actually aren't engineered and effectively resold when car manufacturers do it quite well? These assets have lives beyond that first owner, but the vast majority of these devices don't have a second owner. Apple has about 1 billion 950 million iOS users at the moment. Approximately maybe 200 million of those devices have a second owner or a second SIM card inside them. And for Android, it's much less. So you have literally 20% of these devices that are being used by a second person. And that's a huge amount of waste that is represented. Most don't get recycled. Most are not disposed of effectively. So there's a whole bunch of structural reasons why that's sort of taking place. We think fundamentally that carriers are in the best position to make this change. We can actually incentivize and help carriers to do that, and that's sort of part of the reason why Kingfisher is has come about and what we're trying to do.
So Hastings has just handed it over to you, Maya, as a carrier, to be in the key position for this. How do you respond?
Okay, so actually I think we are selling too many phones, yes, and we are recovering not as much phones as we need. Only 17% of the mobiles are recovering, and from the mobiles that we sell, not only Telefónica, but as a sector, only 11% come from at the second hand. So we have a lot of room for improvement here. We need to have every tactical, I mean, not just choosing to sell less phones, because indeed we are going to have more population to be connected. So we don't want to leave anyone aside of the digital area. So we need to connect everyone, but we need to do it in a better way. So we need to decrease the impact of each mobile phones, and the 4 ideas that you put there were, the first one is the most important one. So we need to make every phone last longer, and for that we need to make a lot of things. Because it's not about keeping the phone; it's keeping the service that it provides. And we need for that our suppliers to be more active in the eco design, but also in how this mobile device can last longer in terms of the software and hardware and all the things related with the spare parts and these kind of things. So there's a lot of regulation coming here in the European Commission, for instance, that probably will help, to give more like incentivize that this can happen, because we know this that the business is business, and we need also regulation to help us to make this transformation. But for sure this sector needs to transform, because we know that the kind of waste that we are generating as a sector is huge, and we need to take responsibility here.
Okay, great. Maybe let's pick up on this point around regulation, because I guess there's different levers for making change. Regulation is one. There are business model changes. There's engaging the consumer as well. There are other levers perhaps as well. I don't know, Hastings, maybe to go back to you. What do you think, picking up on Maya's point, how important is regulation from your side of view, from where you see it from Kingfisher, in terms of the things that you're looking to do?
Look, I think the danger is that if the industry doesn't figure this out, that regulation will be imposed, and often regulation can be blunt. I mean, just look at some of the data regulation in the EU recently. Again, probably a different controversial topic, but it tried to do good things, but it was executed in a way that wasn't possibly as nimble or as workable as what the industry would like. So there is a risk there. So how do we actually move back to what Maya was saying about incentives to drive behaviour and outcomes? And we think, look, there are customers of carriers that if they had a valid choice, a trusted choice, they would buy a second life device that was in good condition, with a warranty, with support, and they knew what they were going to get. Carriers are definitely the best placed party, because the current solution is fragmented. You don't know where to buy from necessarily. You don't know necessarily the condition or the quality of the device. You don't know if it's really representing true value. There's a bunch of players out there, and it hasn't been structured or formulated in a way to inspire trust and certainty. So we think if you can do that, then the industry will start to have a viable solution for these second and third customers to own a device. Ultimately, then you need a consistent supply of these devices. That's another challenge. No OEM brand really has any consistent second life brand or even a strategy to create one. So if a carrier can generate some of this available stock in a consistent way, they have supply chain and logistics requirements to run their business. We think that then offering those to customers, a lot of people will make that choice, that they'd be happy with a 2-year-old phone that somebody else has owned, that's trusted and effective.
Yeah. Maya, maybe just picking up on that, because obviously Telefónica, you have a relationship with your customers. Is it something that Telefónica is offering refurbished phones? Do you see much of a demand from your customers? Are you looking to create that demand with your customers, perhaps? How do you see it from your point of view?
Well, I think here is like we already are selling this kind of second-hand devices, but the market is not very much aware of it, and this is a problem. I think as companies we need to make to raise awareness, no, in our clients, to make them better, to make better decisions, no, that they can make better decisions. And we have, for instance, which is not regulation, but it's like a voluntary label, which is eco rating, no, for mobile devices, that we have launched from Telefónica and other 4 companies some years ago, and that helps our clients to make better decisions when buying a mobile device, so they can note how impactful is a mobile device in the whole complete lifetime. So I think we have to raise awareness, and this market related with second-hand is there, but there's also not only second-hand devices, but also leasing. So why not, no? Moving to a product, from a product market to a service market. So there's a lot of different innovative market that has to be developed in this mobile market, because indeed we need to do something, and I think there's a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah. Do you, maybe picking up on Hastings' other point around the supply of phones that are refurbished, actually getting phones back in that you can perhaps repair and refurbish. Maybe Maya, just following up on that, is that, do you have, presumably you have take-back scheme at Telefónica in your different markets. Do you have like a consistent flow of phones that come in? Is it a bit patchy from one month to the next? Is it, do you have that kind of supply that therefore you can meet the potential demand from your customers for refurbished devices?
We do have these programs in place, so all the buyback, and they are increasing, but sometimes we feel like the clients keep the mobile as they were a treasure, no? And it's difficult for them to give the mobile back, so we have to incentivize that, and we do that. So we really buy the mobile, and we put it in a new, and then we sell it again, and that works, but we need to scale up. So the thing here is about giving our clients information, giving incentive, and also have partners, because in the end it's not only about us, but having all the supply chain to be prepared for this second hand and this. But indeed, we are increasing here. So we have already in the last year we have collected 328,000 in our different markets, and this is increasing year by year. So yes.
Maybe picking up that point with you, Hastings, just on the collection and take back. I mean, I'll put my hand up, guilty for having a drawer full of phones at home. I'm sure perhaps I'm not the only one in this room. Is it difficult to get people to kind of engage with, taking those drawers out of the phone? Perhaps they keep one as a backup. Perhaps they just think, oh, I've got to wipe my data off this, so it's kind of a bit of a hassle. What are you seeing as some of the barriers, some of the incentives to kind of change that deadlock?
Definitely, and I think everyone in this room probably has some phones in drawers. I would assume it's a pretty standard situation, and part of this is driven by customers having an inflexible process, one that's not transparent and easy and simple. It possibly could be concerns about what happens to my data and my personal information if I hand that phone back or trade it in or obtain value. And so we've developed a solution that's live in a sort of a tier one market that tries to address all of those things and gives the customer the ability to actually understand real value via an app or via a portal. Communicates it very effectively, very clear statements about exactly what happens with the device, and also the benefits from an environmental perspective as well. So we're trying to break down each of these challenges to actually accelerate the adoption of, or at least the willingness for people to actually take these devices and return them so that they can be reused. And reused, not recycled, I think is another important point. Recycling these devices does give benefit, it's better than nothing, but it's challenging to actually disassemble these devices into raw components, and there isn't a great secondary market for those either. So if you can reuse the device, it's much better from a environmental perspective. The 80 kilo of CO2 equivalent impact of a new phone, I think it's 83% of that is actually in the manufacturer. That was in some of the notes. Okay, so that's about 50 kilos or 55 kilos equivalent. In order to reuse a device, even with your grading and your wiping and repackaging and logistics, that adds up to about 10 kilos. So again, significant benefits of reuse if you can do that. And getting these devices out of drawers is a significant part of the supply opportunity that we all have.
And are you finding, in terms of what you're offering, that people are engaging with it? Like it is working, it's kind of hitting the right buttons, kind of the points that you made around the wiping and the environmental savings, and etc.
Devices in drawers are one source of supply. Another source of supply is, like, if I'm actually buying a Second Life device, I'd like something that's sort of 2 to 3 years old, maybe 18 months old, not 4 or 5 years old, from a battery performance perspective. How do you get a reliable supply of devices as a carrier that are 12, 18, 24 months old? The OEMs don't sell them, obviously. That would be impactful to their core business model. So again, what we've tried to do is actually increase the ability or the simplicity of upgrading. Some customers are tech savvy or early adopters, whatever you want to call them. They don't want a Second Life device, and they're willing to upgrade frequently. We can take those upgraded devices and sell them as a 18-month or 24-month old device as a really viable option for people who don't, who might be looking for a $300 to $500 device. So there's a huge opportunity in the existing base of carriers to enable tech-savvy customers to get their phones back into the system for second and third lives, we think, in addition to the ones in drawers.
Yeah, absolutely. Maya, maybe thinking about that and the business model for Telefónica, because presumably you make money by selling new phones. Is it a threat to your business model then if you're focusing a little bit more on selling refurbished phones?
Yeah, we can make the same business. It's about margin. No, you can maintain business the same margin, but you can sell refurbished phones. You can sell secondhand. You can do leasing. This is what we are doing actually. So we have to increase that by having a better marketing, better engagement with our clients, showing the environmental and social benefits of these different options. And I think indeed our clients are more prepared for making this transition. Maybe we have to, not all segments are the same, but I think the increase of population, regarding the environmental impact of making better decisions when procuring everything. It's not only clothing. It's clear. But it's not only. There's some sectors that are very visible so far. But I think it's starting to make them aware of what is the impact behind a mobile device. So I think we are, because again we know that 11% of the mobile that we all sell are second-hand. So there's a lot of room for improvement here, and indeed, it's not about losing margin, it's about doing business in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe there's one mobile phone manufacturer, Nokia, who recently announced that they're going to make it easy to repair their phone. Hastings, from your point of view, is that presumably that's a good thing because that's kind of aligned to some of these principles. Do you see that as being something that we'll perhaps all be doing in 2 or 3 years' time? Do you think that's kind of a big part of the solution, a small part of it? How do you see what they're doing?
I think it's great versus other OEMs, again, who I won't name specifically, but the argument in the industry is that you need any form of modularity decreases performance. That's the argument. So people say that you need to have a tightly integrated design and manufacturing process in order to get the most performance possible. Hopefully Nokia can show that that doesn't necessarily have to be true in every situation. I think that modularity is great in the sense that, well, how many people are going to repair their own phone? Probably a relatively small number. But in 3 years' time or 2 years' time, if that battery capacity gets to, say, 70% versus what it was at new, then somebody in the process, in that value chain, can switch out that battery in a relatively simple way at lower cost. There we go.
We're just
I
saving
think I'm
energy.
an OEM somewhere, and maybe they're turning off the lights. So I think that's awesome because Telefónica, or the carriers that Kingfisher works with, could have a low-cost way to improve the viability of that device 2 years down the track. Another thing that they did announce as part of this update was that they were guaranteeing that it would have 2 versions of Android software refresh, so at least for 3 years. Now that's a wonderful step forward. Still not enough. I think Apple's sort of supporting most of their devices up to 5 years with the latest software. Obviously, Apple's integrated business model. The Android OEMs aren't, so they have less control over Google. But it's a step in the right direction. So I think Nokia should be congratulated.
And do you think it is more of a hardware issue then, or more of a software issue in terms of keeping phones going for longer? Because I guess we've been talking more about the refurbishment of the physical phone, but then I guess
think the software also.
Yeah.
So indeed, I mean, this thing about what you have mentioned, no, and this is why the regulation is going in that sense. So it's obsolescence, no. So you need the mobile to last longer, and to last longer in an effective way. So it's not only about battery, which is components, and we need those components to be modular and to have a Lego. Why not? I mean, maybe this is innovation, and probably the first company to do that. Maybe Fairphone has begun to do something like that, but probably we need the bigger ones to be brave and to do it. But probably the first one that is going to take the market, because probably and I think it's not only about hardware, but it's about software. And to update everything, and you can last, because I think lasting longer the mobile device is the only way to really decrease the impact of the sector.
Thinking about the phone manufacturer and Telefónica, obviously you're a big operator. You operate in a lot of countries. You have a lot of customers. But then the phone manufacturers are perhaps even larger businesses. So how do you find it is, because you've been engaging with them through the eco-rating initiative, are you starting to have some of these conversations with them about the circular economy, about eco-rating? How receptive or not do you find they are to those discussions?
Actually, they are very, very receptive, most of them, and we are already working with all of them, step one. And we are disclosing the eco-rating in all our markets, from Telefónica, but also from Orange, Telia, Vodafone, Deutsche Telekom, and Proximus, so many others that are joining the initiative. And I think the conversation with vendors is fantastic. What we are trying this methodology is approach to our customers, and also to increase awareness and also incentivize this eco-design in our suppliers. So we think it's like not being in the middle of these two chains, and I think the conversation with our suppliers is good in terms of the methodology and to give them feedback. So how important this is, and it's quite aligned with all things that is coming from the European Commission in terms of eco-design, so with this recyclability, reusability, and these kind of things that it's like advancing what is going to be there, and it's putting really the effort in what is more harmful in terms of the life cycle of a mobile device, which is manufacturing. It's not the energy consumption that we do have in our clients' homes, because it's not there. The impactful of a mobile device is coming from all the manufacturing side, and we know that, and the eco-rating puts really a lot of critical and very, very easy information to our clients. So it's working very well.
And do you find then that, I guess you're looking to quantify this, the eco rating is about quantification, isn't it? So you're looking at the mobile phone against a number of environmental criteria, and you're looking to kind of quantify exactly how those phones are doing against those. I guess it's still relatively early because the eco rating hasn't been out there for that long, but are you starting to see any kind of quantification of the fact that phones are getting better environmentally? Is that showing up at all in the ratings yet?
Indeed.
Okay.
So we are getting better in the methodology. So we are seeing like they are like getting more closer, everyone. So we are like hiring, we are like reviewing the methodology to make them like to give more, like to spare the numbers. But yes, we are seeing a little bit of improvement, and we want to give more information and advantage. So we are like evolving the methodology to make them, yes. But yes, indeed they are. Some of them, they are taking this very seriously, as he's mentioning. So I think the ones that are take them more seriously, they are advancing more. And I think we are very proud of that.
Okay, excellent. Hastings, I mean, do you have much engagement with the phone manufacturers? You kind of touched on, you've clearly got a bit of a view on. What do you think? How much do you see that they're doing things that are circular? Are perhaps some of them doing things that don't help, or perhaps going in the other direction? Do you see it from your point of view?
I do have a bit of experience in with OEMs. I worked for a couple of them before Kingfisher, so I've sort of seen it from that side of the fence. Look, this business model is incentivized by making things and selling them with margin, and ultimately anything that could constrain that is a challenge for that industry. Hence you haven't seen necessarily as much focus on net environmental outcomes. Yet, possibly with the maturing of the category, I mean, improvements in devices are happening at a less frequent rate versus, say, 5 years ago. Possibly due to the delivery of sort of ecosystem models. I think Apple has about it's just cracked 1 billion subscribers of paying subscribers of various forms. They might start to look at the installed base number as a driver of their business model with those subscription type of products, rather than just depending on new hardware sales. Because 1.5 billion new phones this year is too many phones, ultimately. We should be moving towards that one-to-one future that you mentioned before on the screen there. And I just look, the industry is not set up to fully support that yet, but it's hopefully going in that direction.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the kind of challenges you see at the moment, because we've talked about some of the opportunities and some of the positive things that are happening across the industry. But what do you see as being kind of the blockages or the challenges, the things the hurdles that perhaps we sort of need to overcome, or we need to change to accelerate the transit, where it looks things are heading in a positive direction, but perhaps things are still moving too slowly?
Okay, so barriers. So I think we have, maybe I can resume them in 3. So first one is consumers. So we need them to be more active to make to incentivize through their procurement the better decision making. That's one, and because this will impulse changes. Second one is about the complexity of the value chain. It's very complex, so we need to scale this up, and I think it's difficult, but we need to if we want to include, for instance, recycling materials. You mentioned that, no? This is a global market, but indeed we consume this locally, and we have the local institutions collecting mobile phones, or local companies like us, local markets, but then we have to give, so it's really complex, and we need to solve this. And the other barrier is more coming on the, on the incentives. We need to incentivize our suppliers to make this happen, and it will happen because of the market, but it can happen also because of us, as their clients, their B2B clients, to ask them. So I think I can resume this.
How about you, Hastings?
Look, I think that carriers need to be supported by the industry to sell devices a second and third time. There's a clear source of supply. We mentioned in the carrier base right now, customers should be able to upgrade effectively, and then the carrier should be able to use those devices as second life stock with OEM support. And right now, there isn't as much support in the industry necessarily for that, because it's deemed, it's seen as a bit of a cannibalization risk of new sales. So it might not have to be a second life brand from an OEM. It might just be support in terms of marketing and communication, some kind of mark of certification, and also just in terms of that supply chain of those devices having readily available spare parts that are at reasonable margin, so that these devices can be improved or refurbished and then resold again, generally through the carrier.
Do you find that kind of supply chain of repairers, refurbishers, there was discussion of this recently actually in the UK, that there's not an actual qualification you can get to repair a phone. It doesn't exist. So do we actually need to have something where we're training people up to be able to do this type of work, or have access to sufficient spare parts? I mean, is that supply chain, that refurbishment supply chain and skills, do you see that as being important? Do you see that as being a blocker at the moment? Perhaps Maya, from the volumes that you're doing, perhaps it isn't at the moment, but perhaps could be in the future?
Well, this kind of accreditation is already, for instance, available in Spain.
Okay.
But and I think it's a good idea, but not assuming that a mobile device that's going to be in a second-hand market has to be treated as a waste, because otherwise it's very blocking and it's not impulsing the second market way. So it's like it's a difficult balance, not to really avoid moving devices that are not in use from Europe to Africa. So we have to avoid that, but we have to. So it's good to have some kind of regulation, but it's good that we support also that the second-hand market are more liquid and are more open, because we need this to be active, and sometimes, so it's quite a balance. But in Spain, this kind of accreditation has been created, and it really works.
Fantastic. I wanted to give the audience actually an opportunity to ask any questions that they had. So I don't know if somebody's got a question you'd like to, please go ahead. Sorry, we don't have a microphone, but.
No, that's fine. Small room. Great conversation. We talked a lot about, the repercussions or the impact of reusing phones from a revenue perspective for the carriers. But I also think you guys will lose leverage with the OEMs, so it's also from a procurement perspective. So it's like getting squeezed from both sides, revenue as well as losing. So any strategies you've tried or you want to share as you've been increasing the refurb market? Any strategies that have worked for you with the OEMs to not lose leverage?
So, yeah, I think engaging with them, because what we think is that they have to be part of the change. So it's not only about us selling secondhand, but we want them to be part of the change. So it's that they have to be also part of the refurbished side. So they have to be part of this in somehow. It's not that they will be in the linear way and we will be in the circular side. They have to be part of the circularity. So far, leasing, as I mentioned before, so some kind of not selling products but selling services. Why not? No? Why do we need to change the mobile? So why not? Why buying a mobile device? No, this is working with a high level, but maybe it can work with other kind of mobile devices. So this and that will make them more. Yeah, they will be part of the market from the beginning. So they know this is is like with the cars, and that's working. Why not with a mobile device? Which indeed they are very expensive. No, so so these kind of strategies are already working, and probably we have to be more imaginative and think with the marketing guys to increase this kind of strategies. But for sure there are plenty.
It's more market specific. Leasing may work in some markets and not in the others.
Maybe not in others, but maybe the ones that are not working, they will work in the future.
Thanks.
As a consumer with a smartphone, let's say I have a smartphone for a year and I don't want it anymore, I want to upgrade. sell it on the third-party market? Should I bring it to my carrier? What would you tell a consumer right now is the best thing to do?
Okay, the best way to perform here is to give a second life to a mobile phone, either to you, either to anyone else close to you, or give it back to someone, to some company like Telefónica or any other carrier, and to give it a second life. So recycling is the best option if there's nothing else you can do. So, but not keep it in the cupboard. Not keep it without any use. That will be the worst option of all.
So we have hundreds of thousands of customers exactly like you in our programs. Basically what happens with those devices, you come in, if you still have financing on that device, you can upgrade it to any brand new device you like at no cost to you if the device is working. We take that, we do a wipe, we grade it, we put it in a sustainable package, and then we resell it through the carrier's second brand that we work with, and through an e-store, and it's working very well. So again, that device would have a second life. And again, it's got to be good value, it's got to be trusted, it's got to be secure from a data perspective, it's got a warranty on it. All of these basic things that customers expect from devices and get with brand new ones, we've sort of replicated that into this second life. So you'd be also doing your bit for environmental positive outcomes.
So how to evaluate in detail, in practice, that the consumer have awareness of eco-rating mechanism?
If I understood you correct, so disclosing the eco rating is part of what the operators we are doing. And I think how we evaluate if they make decisions based on the eco rating, we have made some surveys, not only Telefónica, but I remember Telia has done some of them, and also Deutsche Telekom. And really depending on the market, this is starting to be some part of the decision making. We know that it's not the most critical part, but it's apparently is starting to be part of their decision making. So if I can say that. So I think it's critical. We are putting this information in the online side and also in the shops, and we are training our personnel in shoppers, so really to make them aware if any client asks about the eco rating, to give the feedback. So we evaluate different environmental impacts. So it's only based on the environmental impact of a mobile device, and indeed it's a thing that but I think and again, so a barrier is also awareness of our clients. No, so we are very much used to buy a refrigerator, take into consideration an A, of the energy label. So that's pretty much in our mindset, but it's not very much in our mindset the environmental impact behind a mobile device. But this is going to come. So we as a sector have voluntarily developed this label, and I think it's a very good idea. It's already working, but it will work probably more in the future, so as much as our clients are aware of it.
And Maya, have you, are they actually in the shops, in Telefónica shops, the eco
They are. We are now transferring from one version to the other, so maybe maybe in these weeks we can find some, because we have changed from version 2 to version 3, something like that. But yes, they are in the shops and in the online market also, yeah.
Fantastic, thanks.
John Smith, do you see the business model having to change? If you compare the auto industry, you have the car manufacturers make the cars, they often lease the cars, they have their own finance division, they actually own companies like Avis and Hertz, they actually have pre-approved, approved second-hand, and they're not taking a bite out of cherry. If you look at the mobile market at the moment, you have off-balance sheet financing of the phone, you have separate companies who are collecting it, separate companies who are refurbishing it, separate companies who are selling it. It's horribly complicated, everyone's taking margin, and that just makes it unattractive, I think, to go forward. So personally, I would see quite a restructuring to really drive this forward. But be interested in both views from the operator and the provider.
Well, John, thank you for the question. So I think, no. I wish I could tell you that I am optimistic, because I am optimistic indeed, but I think things are not solved. So this is why I told from the beginning to Stephen that this was very brave, because I think what we need is to have this conversation in a really huge room, and to have the market here, I mean, to have the sector talking about it, no? To have Samsung, to have Apple, and to have Oppo or whatever, no? So I think this is critical for the sector. I think and when our customers start to think about it seriously and make decisions, that we will see the change. But the change has already started. So we know that GSMA has prepared this paper with all of us, and the conversation is already there. The regulator is already there. We know that. So we know things will change. They will change in 6 months. They will change in 2 years, but they will not change in 10 years. The change is now. So, but I agree with you. I mentioned that the supply chain is really complex for the sector, and that is not easy. It's not making our lives easy, but I think we will manage.
Totally agree about the state of the industry. It is fragmented, as we mentioned earlier. It's a cottage industry in a sense. There's a lot of players trying to involve themselves in the space. I guess the thing that we tried to do, and we have done so far, is to offer a simple solution for carriers where we manage that, and that's sort of part of our core business model, on a transparent basis, so carriers can understand exactly sort of the cost of the processes, and ultimately, as you mentioned, come out with something that is cost effective, creating real value for customers, again, in this second and third life. The example that I mentioned previously uses sort of these capabilities that we provide. So carriers just have to deal with one partner, one supplier. They don't have to manage it themselves, and it's hopefully simpler. The simpler we can make it for carriers, and we can drive carrier profitability, alongside customer value, that will dictate the speed at which these second and third life devices will be taken up. Not sure I agree about your point about the auto industry. I think they do clip the ticket on a lot of things as well, but that's a mature industry with a well-known sort of value chain. The mobile side is less clear, less transparent so far. We're trying to work to change that.
Great.
Hello, thanks for the conference here. And I'm coming from Turkey, and I am working for a licensed refurbishment company. Because in Turkey, we have regulations about refurbishment, device refurbishment. I mean, we can refurbish a smartphone under a license that given from the Ministry of Trade. So it's totally legal in terms. So what I'm going to ask you is, in like Samsung or Apple in Turkey, they also give subsidy for the buyback campaigns, or they really incentivize the buyback programs. But the main issue is just providing an original spare parts for the refurbishment, because this is the main critical of the change the supply chain, because you are not so you give warranty for that device, but you don't have the chance to provide an original spare part. So it's not that smartphone. So the quality is always going to be a problem for us. And we are having some issues. We are having the talks with Apple and Samsung about that. But how do you solve it here in Europe? How do you solve it with Telefónica? I mean, is there something that can you provide original spare parts for the cars?
Well, those are specific conversations, no, with our vendors. We are selling, second-hand devices from iPhone, but they have to be part of the business, as you mentioned. So if I get you correct, what you are saying is that they are part of the refurbishment process, but they don't allow you to sell second-hand.
Definitely. I mean, the industry needs to support the greater availability of authorized, approved parts, but with appropriate markup and profitability for the OEMs, not that actually support the economics of that device being resold once it's repaired. One of the ways that we've tried to do it is that our products try and drive some upgrades of devices that are relatively young, between say 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. Just because of that fact, they're in better condition. They generally don't need refurbishment, so you don't have to open them up and perform those repairs, and they can be resold on that basis in that good condition. I agree. The economics of refurbishment are challenging if you are using, always using OEM-approved parts. Yet, if you don't do that, obviously, then sometimes the challenge can be as you say, the quality and the consistency of that. The other way that we have tried to do it is we offer a warranty, so a 12-month warranty, no questions asked for these second life devices that we're helping the carrier retail, and that does build trust, and we sort of stand by those products on that basis.